But I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. So we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kyiv. I said, what the hell was that all about?
Do you trust him?
I trust almost nobody.
Amid escalating tensions with Russia, U.S. President Donald Trump, in a fresh remark, said that he's disappointed but not done with Vladimir Putin over the ongoing war in Ukraine. Speaking to the BBC, Trump said he had hope for peace, but claimed Russia kept escalating just as deals neared completion. Trump said that Putin had given him signals suggesting progress toward peace, only to follow up with renewed attacks. Trump revealed that he had believed a peace deal was within reach with Russia 4 separate times, but each time was wrong. When asked whether he trusted Vladimir Putin, Trump responded that he trusts almost no one, reflecting his growing frustration with Moscow. The tensions rise as the U.S. president recently announced billions in weapons for Ukraine and warned of tariffs on Russian exports. The weapons package, including Patriot missiles, will be paid for by NATO under a new U.S.-Europe deal. Trump gave Russia a 50-day window to agree to a ceasefire or face sweeping sanctions and economic isolation. He reaffirmed his support for NATO, calling the alliance vital despite once describing it as obsolete.
But I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. So we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kyiv. I said, what the hell was that all about?
Do you trust him?
I trust almost nobody. The deal we made last week is amazing. The 5%.
Yes.
Nobody thought that was possible. And it amounts to over $1 trillion a year. I think NATO is now becoming the opposite of that. I do think it was passed, and it was very unfair because the United States paid for almost 100% of it. But now they're paying their own bills, and I think that's much better. Yeah, I think collective defense is fine. I think it's been on the sloppy side, but I think it's getting straightened out. I really like the Prime Minister a lot, even though he's a liberal. I think he did a good trade deal with us, which a lot of countries haven't been able to do. I want to have a good time and respect King Charles because he's a great gentleman. One of the problems with NATO is I said, we have to fight for them, but will they actually fight for us if we had a war? And I'm not sure I can say it, but I will say this. I believe that the UK would fight with us. There's something about it. It's just been so many years, and I really think the relationship is just a really great one. I think that they would be with us. I'm not sure that a lot of the other countries would be, which is unfair because we pay far more than anybody else. There's this special relationship we have. Well, look, that's why I made a deal with them, and I haven't made a deal. I mean, I've made some other deals, but for the most part, in terms of your competitors and in terms of the European Union, I haven't made a deal. But no, the UK is very special. And it's been there for a long time. Yeah, they have been a really true ally. I think America is now a great country, and it was a dead country 1 year ago. And that's been told to me by many leaders of the countries,
Meanwhile, Russia has intensified attacks on Ukrainian cities, causing record civilian deaths in recent weeks. Putin insists he also wants peace, but blames Kyiv and NATO for provoking the war through threats to Russian security. Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev dismissed Trump's threats as a theatrical ultimatum, saying Russia does not care about U.S. pressure. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow wants to understand why Trump set a 50-day Ukraine peace deadline.
We would like to ask you to comment on Trump's statement about Ukraine yesterday. Are we, after what was said yesterday in Washington, Still prepared to continue dialogue with the U.S. on normalizing bilateral relations and resolving the Ukrainian conflict? And, if I may, one more follow-up question. How do we assess the threat of 100% tariffs being imposed on our trading partners from the perspective of Russia's foreign economic interests? Maybe you managed to discuss this.
In my opinion, that's really the same question, because the statement was specifically about 100%. Generally speaking, as a matter of principle, we never pursue a course that would in any way harm our national interests or compromise the security and well-being of the country. Break time equals 0.5s/. And the special military operation is aimed precisely at this, to eliminate at the root, in its infancy, those threats that the North Atlantic Alliance has been creating right on our borders, not just for a day or a year, but for decades. And Russia has issued repeated warnings. The president has devoted countless speeches and statements to this issue, and unfortunately, he was not heard. But apparently, this only confirms what he said recently. President Putin, in his interview with Pavel Zarubin, spoke about how his and our collective perception of relations with the West has evolved. At first, it seemed that if we just removed the ideological differences, everything would be fine. But then it turned out that the issue wasn't ideology at all, and that the West has always been driven by only one thing: geopolitical containment, suppression, or even direct military destruction of Russia, regardless of what ideology was practiced in the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, or post-Soviet Russia, as has happened more than once in history. That's why, of course, as Dmitry Peskov said, we want to understand what's really behind this statement. There used to be 50 days, and then 24 hours, and 100 days as well. We've been through all of that, and we really do want to understand what motivates the President of the United States. It's clear that he is under enormous, I would even say indecent, pressure from the European Union and the current NATO leadership, who are brazenly supporting Zelensky's demands to keep supplying him with modern, including offensive, weapons at the increasing expense of taxpayers in Western countries. So, we have a saying, don't dig a pit for someone else. And as for the sanctions that the European Union has now imposed, and the new ones being prepared in Brussels, they're trying to drag the United States into this sanctions vortex as well. But President Trump explained very clearly that it will be Europe that ends up paying for all of this. All of this, of course, has already caused very serious damage to the European economy. Sensible and objective European analysts, economists, and political scientists admit that the main party suffering from this sanctions war is, first and foremost, its initiator. As for us, we've already had an unprecedented number of sanctions imposed against us. We're managing. I have no doubt whatsoever that we will cope. This conclusion is also based on assessments and analysis by independent, including many Western economists and politicians. So, as for, yes, our trading partners, they hear what has been said, but it's unlikely they can now predict their own actions. They have obligations, international obligations. And knowing about these partners of ours, I don't see how they can abandon their independent policy, their policy of honoring agreements reached both through bilateral channels.
You mentioned that Moscow wants to understand where Trump's statements are coming from. And actually, even before Trump, American Senator Lindsey Graham said pretty much the same thing, that Russia, well, actually Brazil, China, and India are playing into Putin's hands. And you have already stated that Moscow does not possess any particular significant concerns about its various partners, but I truly wanted to inquire, is there any genuine potential for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, or the BRICS group to undertake joint coordinated action regarding, well, this specific kind of emerging threat?
Well, since there have been specific threats coming from Washington directed at BRICS, saying that BRICS needs to be fought against, that BRICS undermines the interests of the United States. But to be fair, I have to say, earlier, President Trump expressed a somewhat different point of view. He said directly that the actions taken by the Biden administration, using the dollar as a weapon, have caused irreparable damage to the reputation of this global reserve currency. And I am sure that he understands the fairness of that assessment. And the fact that, in response to the lawlessness of the previous administration, both BRICS, the community of Latin American and Caribbean states, and many others are seeking alternative payment methods that are not tied to the dollar, thereby protecting themselves from Washington's arbitrariness. This process can no longer be stopped, and there are statistics showing what the share of the dollar in global trade and international financial settlements looks like now. It's not because we wanted to run away from the dollar. President Putin has emphasized this more than once. It was the dollar that was chosen as a tool to punish those whose behavior Americans consider inconsistent with those very same infamous rules by which they want to maintain the entire world order. But if we're talking seriously about concerns, our profession is not to be afraid. Our profession is to ensure that Russian interests are taken into account, to work openly and honestly, based on international law and agreed upon principles. A self-respecting, strong, and independent state simply cannot act otherwise. And we have, I want to emphasize this once again, every reason to believe that the states that are part of BRICS are also sovereign and value their position in the global system.